Okay, well, I'd like to introduce today's guest. His name is Carey Holtzman. He's been here many times before speaking. He's a radio personality. I don't know if he's still doing that or not, but he'll let you know. And I'd like everybody to welcome Carey, and he'll take over.
How many of you have seen me here before? About half the room. So for the other half, I'll introduce who I am. My name is Carey Holtzman. Yes, I did host a radio show for about 6 years, nationwide radio show that didn't broadcast in Arizona, but was across the United States. I've written a book. I initially toured here back in '04 to promote my book, The Healthy PC, which I'm not promoting anymore because it's outdated. You don't want it now. I have my own computer repair and service business in Glendale, so I've driven out from Glendale here in the lovely weather we're having. What is that stuff coming from the sky? You guys know what it is. You just left some of that. I also have lately been getting into instructional videos on YouTube, and these are all free for everybody to check out. In fact, I'm filming this presentation today that you'll be able to watch on YouTube later, and then anybody who missed the presentation will also be able to check it out. And it's just www.youtube.com/my name, Carey Holtzman. And when you push enter, it'll take you right to my YouTube channel. And on the YouTube channel, I've got a few product reviews. I also show where you can go for free technical support on the web when you're having a problem. There's some videos on how to build your own computer for those of us that perhaps want to do it but are afraid to because it's a lot of money invested. And you see the default video that comes up on my channel is this video on free technical support. But right up here, there's a button that says Browse Videos, and if I click on that, that's going to take you to a bunch of videos, and every once in a while I throw one into the dogs at the park just to mix it up a little bit. But there's a lot of different videos there about, there's a review there, there's these glasses called Gunners, and they're intended to ease eye strain and fatigue if you sit in front of a computer for a long time. And I reviewed them. I don't really know if they work because I don't really suffer from eye strain or fatigue, but I thought they made me look pretty cool. So, and then I ended up giving those away too. So there's sometimes some contests on there, but it's a great place to go for free information. There's one of my favorite videos that I did shows a common way people get themselves infected with the virus. And maybe if we have time later, I can play that for you. I won't get into that right now. One of the things I get often asked by the president of the club or the person who books the person to present is, what is your presentation going to be about? What can we put in our newsletter to tell our members what to expect? And I have a problem answering that because I never know what I'm going to talk about. Because I'm not here, you're all sitting down, I'm not here to sell you anything. All right. And nothing I hated worse when I was a member of the Phoenix PC user group than a presenter would come, and of course there was always some corporation that would send somebody down and they'd dim the lights and they'd put on a PowerPoint presentation and they'd say, please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. And that's about the time when I got up and I walked out the door. What I like to do is rather than play psychic and talk about what I think you want to hear, or rather than talk about what I want to hear, I encourage you guys to raise your hand or shout out, I don't care, interrupt me, ask a question, whatever on your mind. Technical, not really good with relationships, but technical, computer-related questions, and I'll do my best to answer that. It's a little bit of stump the Carey, and it makes it more interesting for me as well. And I'll tell you, if you will sit there and just watch, if you just want to be a spectator, you will not enjoy this as much as somebody who asks a question. I'll just warn you of that right now. The people who ask the questions are going to get more from this. However, don't be afraid to ask any questions. Don't think your question's too dumb or too silly, or because chances are if you've got that question, somebody in this room also has that question and wasn't brave enough to ask it or just didn't think, didn't think about it. Yes, sir?
Is window 8 worth the trouble?
Is Windows 8 worth the trouble? You know, it's funny because sometimes I have a hard time getting the room to start raising their hands, and this is a good start.
I'd like to make an additional question on that.
Okay.
I've looked at the Windows 8 interface.
Yes.
And frankly, I'm turned off.
Yeah.
I like the way the interface is on XP and that, and I've heard there's programs to get you back, so, but all the new computers come with Windows 8, so is that the path I'm gonna take? I'm gonna put one of these little programs on to make it come back and look like XP and be happy then? Because
Yeah.
Windows supports it?
Yes.
Yes.
Can everybody hear him? Okay. Where I was going, before I was interrupted. No, please interrupt me, it's okay. Sometimes I have a hard time getting the room to start asking questions, so I immediately know right now in everybody's mind is Windows 8 because it came out in late October, and Microsoft will shove it down your throat if you buy a new computer. You don't have a choice. You can't get Windows 7 anymore. You can buy Windows 8 Professional with downgrade rights, which is intended for businesses, which costs a bit more money, and you can downgrade the machine back to Windows 7. But let me just say this about Windows 8. What a lot of people don't like about it, including myself, is the interface. There's this Metro interface, and they've taken the name away. They don't call it Metro interface anymore. And it's still a Metro interface, but they changed the name. And they got rid of the start button. And that's what really upset me. Where's my start button? How do I get to the control panel? You got to move the mouse into a corner. You've got to drag the mouse across the screen like it was a virtual finger, which looks great on a smartphone, but doesn't quite work if you don't have a touchscreen computer. If you buy a touchscreen computer, you might really like that. And then the other thing it lets you do is download apps. Apps, just like a smartphone. They're trying to, the logic is, all those sacrifices that you make to have these things on your smartphone portable with you will make you take those same sacrifices on your desktop so that it'll be the same on both platforms, which is not the way I would do it. But that said, there is a free program. There's also several paid ones. There is a free program that will get rid of that Metro interface and return the start button back. And there's this great website called SourceForge, and they're a community of developers, and everything they do is free and open source and transparent. And if you go to Classic Shell, there's no www, just classicshell.sourceforge.net, which is kind of up there. You can download this program for free on your Windows 8 computer. So if you had to buy a new computer that came with Windows 8, and you don't like that interface, and you'd like to have your start button back, and you'd like to get rid of that Metro interface, download this for free. And the beauty of this is it won't hurt your computer. It's not a virus or spam or spyware or adware. It's a free open source program. If you don't like it, you just go to your control panel, go to programs and features, just like you would on Windows 7, and uninstall it. It goes right back to the way it was. Now there's a few others out there that will do this. They cost money, and I haven't used those. I've used this one, and I will tell you that Windows 8 isn't so different from Windows 7 once you put that on it.
Just a minute.
So suddenly things start looking familiar again. Now, if you have a computer that has Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, do not upgrade it to Windows 8. I do not advise that. When you buy a new computer, it will come with Windows 8, a computer that was designed and built and engineered to run Windows 8. Other computers, older than Windows 8, the engineers didn't have crystal balls, so they couldn't possibly anticipate what Windows 8 requirements would be. And in some cases, it'll install fine. In other cases, you'll regret doing it. It's the equivalent of changing the engine out of a car, changing your operating system. I recommend just buy a new car. Take the engine it came with. Not to mention, it's like buying 2 licenses for the same car. Because when you buy a Windows license, it's 1 license per computer, just like a car. And when you buy a Windows 7 license, and then you buy a Windows 8 license, you've effectively bought 2 licenses for the same computer. Sounds like a waste of money to me. The question that I recommend everybody ask themselves before changing operating systems is, What can I do with this new operating system that I can't do with my operating system I have now? Then the following question, if there is an answer to the first question, is how much does that cost to do that? How much time will I have to spend to learn? And is that a worthy investment for the return I'm going to get? It's that simple. But many of us here will simply buy a new computer and have Windows 8. That's just the way it's going to go down. When do you buy a new computer? Well, when your computer no longer meets your needs, which means whatever that means. Everybody uses a computer for different reasons. So if your computer doesn't turn on anymore, whether it's worth fixing or replacing, that's a judgment call we each have to make on our, depending on the situation, our unique situation. However, if you have Windows XP, support for Windows XP is going to end in April next year, April 2014. What does that mean? That means no more updates from Microsoft. You know those monthly updates that come out every second Tuesday of the month? Those are there to protect you from the latest discovered exploits that hackers can use to infect your computer. When Microsoft stops releasing updates, those just newly discovered exploits will remain unpatched. And every week, every day, every month, more and more exploits will be discovered, and you will be more and more vulnerable to infection. And if you continue to run Windows XP, you may soon discover that new printer or scanner no longer has drivers for Windows XP. And when you go to the manufacturer's website, it's not supported. And when you download a new piece of software, it doesn't work in Windows XP. And then you can't find any antivirus because they don't support XP because Microsoft stopped supporting XP. Now, this won't all happen in April. This is a gradual decline. Anybody here still running Windows 98? Did any printer or scanner you bought recently come with Windows 98 drivers? No, it didn't. You ever try and find some antivirus that'll run on Windows 98? And it didn't happen as soon as support ended, but that's where the decline usually begins. In XP, it's actually started now. I've actually started running into issues with Internet Explorer 8 not displaying web pages correctly. And Microsoft says you really should upgrade to Internet Explorer 9, only available on Windows Vista 7 and 8. How convenient. So I just download Google Chrome and everything works fine again. It's not a limitation of XP that it can't run Internet Explorer 9. It's a marketing maneuver to get you to upgrade. So, are there other questions about Windows, Windows 8, or the upcoming end of Windows XP? Yes?
If somebody bought a tablet today, or this week, would it be loaded with Windows 8?
If somebody bought a tablet, would it be loaded with Windows 8? I'm going to repeat your question so everybody can hear you. I hope so. Because a tablet is going to have a touchscreen interface, which is where Windows 8 excels. Windows 7 does not. So if you're going to buy a tablet or anything with a touchscreen, you definitely want Windows 8, for sure. But pretty much any new computer, if it's a Windows computer, whether it's a tablet, a laptop, or a desktop, will come with some version of Windows 8. Yes, sir?
You should distinguish that a lot of them are Android though, right?
Well, tablets are Android.
There are, thank you. Yes, there are some tablets out there that run on other operating systems besides Windows. So, for example, the iPad runs on Apple's own iOS, and some tablets run on the Android system, which is what you see on a lot of smartphones. It's basically a big smartphone, or a larger smartphone. I don't know much about the Android operating system. I don't even have a smartphone. A lot of people are surprised by this because I'm a techie. I'm a nerd, I'm a geek. And I have a flip phone. People go, what? Why do you have a flip phone? My friends look at me like I'm from the past. And I say to them, and this is, you always wonder when you're a kid, when that point in your life is going to come when you don't understand kids. It's here. I use this to make and receive phone calls. I don't use it to get me to places. I have a GPS for that. I don't use it to take pictures. I have a camera for that. If I wanted to text somebody, why don't I just get out the old Morse code machine? Why don't we do that again? You know, you can talk now. It's a lot easier than this. But you can't be as rude at the dinner table by I'm just going to stand up here. Because this is more important than anybody in the room. Kids today. I don't get it. And these are getting harder and harder to find. They're phasing these out. I don't want to pay an extra $40 a month for a data plan. Are you kidding me? I go, what do you use it for? I go to my friend, what do you use that for? If I lived in New York or Boston or Chicago and there was public transportation and I was biding my time on the train or the bus, I could watch a movie or, well, I can watch movie trailers on it. You can watch movie trailers really on that 3-inch screen, HD, that's great. I don't even know why I bought a 60-inch LED TV. I really don't, when I had this. Well, I can check movie times. Oh yeah, you know, that's exactly what I wanted to do just now. What's at the movies right now? I don't just drive in a car and go, what's at the movies? Well, I do. Well, then drive by the theater, you're in the car. I pull right up in the front of the theater and I look at the screen. You can see the weather? There's a window? I don't get it. I don't get it. I have yet to hear a practical reason for having this. A smartphone, rather. Well, I use it as a GPS. Really, I have a GPS that does that. Yes?
Just wondering how long Windows 7 is going to be supported.
How long is Windows 7 going to be supported? Glad you brought that up. I just recently upgraded a business client of mine. Many of my businesses are still, businesses that I support, my clients, are still running Windows XP. And I need to bring them over to Windows 7, not Windows 8, because Windows 8 isn't going to work very well in a business environment with that interface. So, well, geez, Windows 7's been out 3 years. Why are you putting us on something old? Well, Windows 7 support, I'm just going to type it right in here. Windows 7 support. Oh, you know what? End of life. And we should get an official Microsoft page, lifecycle fact sheet, that will tell us that Windows 7 support here we go. January 12th, 2015 for technical support, and 2020 until the updates stop. So we're good for 7 more years. Because XP passed that technical support thing years ago. We're in the, what Microsoft calls the end of, their extended support, which is just updates. So if you put on Windows 7 today, you're good, theoretically, until January 14th, 2020, unless they extend that date. And Vista, their support ends on April 11th, 2017, and Windows, as I mentioned, XP, April 8th, 2014. So again, it's not that the computer's going to stop working as of that date, it just means the updates are going to stop and then things are going to start, you're going to start becoming more vulnerable to infection, and the likelihood of installing some hardware or software after that point, as each week goes on, becomes more and more likely that it will not install. Yes?
What's the best protection software?
What's the best protection software? That's a great question. A lot of people, I get a phone call. Put you in my shoes for a minute. I get a phone call, a customer says, I got a virus. Okay, well how could that happen? I have antivirus software. Well, no antivirus software can protect you 100%. What I hear when a customer calls and asks me that is, I got into a car accident, but I drive a Volvo. How did that happen? Learn how to drive. You aren't exempt from learning how to drive because you bought a safe car. I couldn't tell you the crash rating on my car. I don't know. Haven't checked it out. Haven't been in an accident. So, I'm going to answer your question 2 ways. 1, you shouldn't need it if you're careful and you keep your computer updated. And nobody wants to hear this, but every program in your computer needs to be updated. If you have Java, about every 3 to 4 weeks there's a new version of it. Adobe Reader, if you have Adobe Reader version 7, 8, 9, or 10, take it off and go get Adobe Reader 11.0.1. There's already been an update to 11. Most of you probably don't have it. These are ways people get infected. What about every program on your computer? Every single program. If you're using Google Chrome, if you're using Firefox, click on Help in About, or Help and check for updates on every program in your computer. Every program should have a check for updates option. And you should get those updates, because that's what they're for, primarily, is to protect you from threats. And then, of course, there's Windows Update. You cannot just rely on Windows Updates coming in automatically. You should go to Windows Update and hit the Custom button and take a look at the missing updates on your computer and consider putting those on. If you do not, because you've heard those updates cause problems, that's like somebody not getting a flu shot because they heard of their friends getting sick after they got the flu shot. So instead, they don't get the flu shot, they get the flu. Okay. If a problem happens after a Windows update, it isn't the Windows Update's fault, usually. They're very well tested before they're released. It is typically a pre-existing problem with the computer you just didn't know was there. Okay, now let me answer your question. I like Microsoft Security Essentials, which is available for free through Windows Update if you have Windows Vista 7 or 8. If it determines you do not have any antivirus, it'll automatically offer it to you. However, you can get it manually if you go to Microsoft.com/security _essentials. And that'll take you to the site where you can get that for free. Now, you don't want any other antivirus software at the same time. So if you have Norton or McAfee or Avast or AVG, take those off first, then go and get Microsoft Security Essentials. However, if any of you have been reading the news lately, you may have heard that Microsoft Security Essentials has not passed an independent virus testers testing. They're in Germany, this company that does antivirus testing, and finds it to be inadequate for protection. And I agree with them. Because most of the time today you don't get viruses. So I'm not too worried about viruses. I'm worried about malicious software or malware. So after you've installed Microsoft Security Essentials, which you can see is running right down here in my system tray, that's this little orange icon, usually is green, but it's orange because it wants my attention. Probably it wants an update or zero, it wants to do a scan, so we'll let it do a scan. That's Microsoft Security Essentials. What I run in conjunction with Microsoft Security Essentials, these two things work really well together. It's called Malwarebytes. So MALWAREBYTES.org. And I'll tell you what I like about Malwarebytes. When you buy a license for it, you buy it for the life of the computer. You can buy it once. You don't have to renew it every year. And that license is about 30 bucks. I've seen it as cheap as 10. So not only is it cheaper than an annual license for the big guys like Norton, McAfee, etc., once you buy it, it's good for the life of that computer, and it will update itself. Only occasionally they update the program, and a little pop-up will come up and say, please click here to install the new version. It's already downloaded it, but it needs you to install the new version. That's the only time you ever have to do anything. There is a free version of this, and the free version will help you clean up infections, but you have to update it yourself. The paid version will help prevent infections, and it automatically updates. I highly recommend it. One of the things I get asked a lot is, how did I get infected? I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't see what you did. But with Malwarebytes, if you click on something you shouldn't have, chances are, remember, none of this is 100%, but there's probably 85% chance it'll pop up and go, that's a virus. And now you immediately know what you did to cause that. So you can train yourself, safe surfing habits, by having the paid version of Malwarebytes. And together with Microsoft Security Essentials, I find that to be a perfect combination. It's what I recommend for all my clients. And even clients that have had problems with viruses in the past don't have these problems now. In fact, I just got a client who got infected with an FBI ransom thing. His computer comes up and it says, "We've detected pirated software on your computer, pay us $200, and he can't do anything with his computer." Well, one of the things that we do on the computer is we like to click on things really quickly without reading them. And when I taught this gentleman the last time he was infected was to get Malwarebytes, he did not. He did on the machine that was infected, but now he infected the other machine, which he didn't have time or get around to getting the Malwarebytes. And now I have to go pick it up on the way home because we tried doing it remotely and I can't even, it's locked down. But he said, I looked at it because I thought, how would the FBI know? And then when I looked at it, I saw the misspellings and the poor grammar that you brought up before. And once I took the time to read it, I realized that's not real. And that's one of the things I stress. When you see a pop-up on your screen, read it, stop, slow down. Look at the English. Look where there should be a plural, where there should be an S on the end of something, or 2 L's or 2 C's or something. These are common misspellings. And just poor English, just poorly worded sentences will tell you immediately that's not real. So there are other antivirus solutions out there. You might be familiar with other free ones, Avast and AVG, and I'm not here to put any of those down. You can pay for Norton if you want it, and McAfee if you want it, or Trend Micro. There's tons of them. And they all none of them protect you 100%. Every second, I think they said, no, it's either every second 2 or 3 viruses are released, or every 2 to 3 seconds a virus is released. It's an enormous amount of viruses that are released to the internet every day. So these things are constantly being updated. And how one works against a particular virus is no measure of how good it is, because it just depends which one you got that day and whether or not your particular antivirus was updated that day. So I don't weigh much into these antivirus tests. Yes?
So is the Malwarebytes good with the other systems?
Malwarebytes will work is supposed to work with all antivirus programs. However, some antivirus programs are also anti-malware programs too. They try and put everything under one roof. And there may be a conflict with Malwarebytes with those programs. So if what you've got is a pure antivirus, so for example, Norton has an antivirus and then Norton has a full internet security suite. I don't know that it'll work with the internet security suite. It might. I don't like to promote Norton or McAfee because they're such big giants in the industry, they don't need it. The smaller guys like Malwarebytes that do a really good job, they're the ones I want to give attention to. And Microsoft Security Essentials, whether it's good or it's bad, it's really, hopefully you don't activate it anyway. Hopefully you make the right choices online that don't get yourself infected and you keep your computer updated. But in that instance where we make a mistake, hopefully the Malwarebytes or Microsoft Security Essentials, chances are it'll be Malwarebytes, will pop up and say, this is a virus, and it'll block it from going any further. And that's what I'm hoping. And then you can go, okay, I know not to do that. That's how I get a virus. There's no guarantee, but statistically the odds are in your favor if you have that program, through my experience with myself and my clients. Yes?
What's the motivation of the malware?
Why do people write viruses?
Yeah.
Back in the day, way back in the 80s, it doesn't seem so far ago. People used to write viruses for the same reason people tag graffiti stuff. Same reason. It's basically graffiti. Today, it's a different thing. Today, there is a lot of Eastern Bloc countries, particularly, Russian mafia. It does exist. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry to get your credit card information. What they want to do is they want to get this virus installed on your machine to either trick you into saying, hey, you have a virus, when it's the virus telling you have a virus, but they're pretending they're the antivirus. And if you pay us this money, we'll take it off. And then you just gave them your credit card number. And then chances are they won't take it off. The other thing they'll do is put a keystroke logger on the computer, which, if it's done right, you won't even know it's there. And it'll simply record every key you press. So if you go to www.bankofamerica.com, enter account name, enter password, enter, you just sent them all that information. And that's a keystroke logger. And then they will sell that information. And when you go to Amazon or some other website and you want to buy something, and you're typing your credit card number on your keyboard, they can see that's a credit card number. Or if you're filling out a credit card application and you're putting your name, your address, a social security number, and your income, you could be sending them all of that as well. And they sell it. They sell credit cards for like $2 to $3 a piece. And people buy them by the hundreds because there's a fraction of them that won't work, that'll already be shut down. There's some great stories on 60 Minutes and Dateline that have tracked this and shown the process. There is a big motivator here. These people will take that money and pay developers in other countries to write programs and not even tell them what the program's for. They don't even say who they are. And then they'll just PayPal them the money or send them the money electronically for their work, and out goes another virus. And then when the antivirus catches it, then they figure out a way to get around that, and it's a cat and mouse game. And as long as there's going to be crooks, there's always going to be viruses. Don't let anybody tell you that an Apple computer isn't prone to them. Another way, particularly Apple users can be infected, is by simply redirecting them to a site that looks like Bank of America or PayPal or eBay, but isn't really, but it looks just like it. And that's called website spoofing. And then you can enter your name and password in, and guess what? You just gave them your name and password for that particular site. This is why I don't recommend using Wi-Fi hotspots if you travel. If you're going to use a Wi-Fi hotspot, I wouldn't use it for any financial transaction. It's not your internet. You don't know who's eavesdropping, for lack of a better word. So I wouldn't trust it. If you have a cellular connection, you know, like an air card, completely secure, no problem. If you're at Starbucks, I mean, if you just want to browse the web or do something that doesn't involve personal or financial information, fine, no problem. I wouldn't be paying any bills or checking any bank accounts on the hotel's Wi-Fi, even if I paid for the hotel's Wi-Fi, because it's not my Wi-Fi, and I don't know. There's some great examples. A gentleman said, let me show you how this can work. And he set his laptop up as a customer in Starbucks, and the news anchor set her laptop up, and she connected to Starbucks free Wi-Fi. Well, Starbucks doesn't have a Wi-Fi called Starbucks free Wi-Fi. But she didn't know that. Starbucks Wi-Fi was called something else. She was logged into his computer, and he was redirecting her to fake sites, and said, within seconds he had her login and password. It was all done as a news item. Now, what's the likelihood of that happening? What's the likelihood that you're going to be in a Starbucks or a McDonald's, whatever, and have a hacker there? I don't know. I don't know. It may be unlikely based on where we live. Maybe more likely in Manhattan. I don't know. I just don't recommend it for that reason. I don't think you can be too safe.
Do you have a favorite password managing program?
Do I have a favorite password managing program? Man, I love you guys. You guys are great. Yes, I do. There's two I like. Nothing worse than using the same password for every website. I'm sure a lot of us do that. I mean, you know, there's a lot of websites. If you look at this little green icon right here, this is a program called RoboForm. And if I go to where it says logins, right down here, RoboForm logins, where is it? Right up here. You can see there is a bunch of websites that I connect, and this goes on and on and on for page after page. It says next page. I got a lot of websites, right? Now, if I want to go to eBay, there's eBay right there. It'll take me to eBay. Well, I got to put in, all I have to do is remember one password. That's my RoboForm password. So I put my RoboForm password in, and now it will take me to eBay. Watch this. It's going to put my user ID in, it's going to put my password in, and it's going to hit sign in. How cool is that? RoboForm everywhere is $9.95 for the first year, in $19.95 every year thereafter. And you can install it on as many computers or smartphones or tablets, as many as you want, and it'll even synchronize your passwords and your login information to their website, all encrypted so nobody can get to it, And you could even be on a cruise ship, log into roboform.com and access it that way if you want to. So you have access to your passwords that way. But what if you don't want to spend the money? Is there a free alternative? Well, first of all, before I get to that, RoboForm is available at roboform.com. And the product I'm using is called RoboForm Everywhere. I think it's called Everywhere. You hit the download button.
Negate the keystroke?
In some cases, yes, because you're not pressing the keys. It's only pressing the keys for your RoboForm password. And RoboForm has a password generator, so it can generate these 24-character passwords of upper and lowercase and numbers and symbols, and it'll remember it. You don't have to. You just have to remember your RoboForm password. And yes, for many of the keystroke loggers, since you're not actually pressing the keys, they're not logging anything. But if you want a free alternative to this, there's a program called LastPass. And it's available at lastpass.com. And LastPass started off as a free program, and then they came out with a premium edition, which is like $2 a month, which actually works out to be more than RoboForm. Well, it does for the first year. And you might want to check out LastPass. Now, one of the things I want to tell you about software is it doesn't matter what I like. And I want you to think for a minute that because I like it, it's good. I could be a cook, a chef, and I can put a plate of chicken wings in front of you, and you could say, hey, are these chicken wings hot? And I go, no, they're not hot. And you bite into them and your mouth is on fire. Am I wrong? But you won't know until you try them yourself. So what I'm trying to do here today is introduce you to some free software that is safe for you to try. And if you don't like it, you're allowed to not like it. Okay? There's nothing wrong with you. We have different views on what's important to us, whatever it is. It might be the look, whatever reason you have for not liking it. It will not hurt your computer. You can remove it. It's safe to try. The only way you're gonna know if you like it isn't to ask me whether or not I like it. It's for you to try it. But I don't want you to just go and try anything willy-nilly or you're gonna end up with a virus. So my goal here today is to show you free, safe software for you to try. But I don't want to leave you with the impression that this is the end-all, be-all. There are other alternatives. There's another one called KeyPass, which I won't even get into because I don't even understand how to use it. You understand how to use it? I tried to use it, I couldn't figure it out. You know, so maybe a presentation one day you could put on KeyPass for everybody. Yes?
If you download this and you decide you don't want it, are your passwords the same for those accounts that you had prior to loading it?
If you download this, decide you don't want it, your passwords are whatever you told it your passwords are.
Oh, you do have to tell it.
You have to tell it. The first time you log into a website, it'll say, you haven't logged in here before with RoboForm, would you like me to save this information? You could also put in your name, your address, your city, your street, your phone number. When you order something online and it asks for that, you just hit the fill-in button and it'll fill all those forms in for you, including credit card information if you want it to, but I don't put my credit card information in RoboForm. As much as I trust it, credit card, you know, they send new ones and they expire. I just enter that manually myself. But when it comes to the shipping and billing address, I hit one button, it fills all that in, which is really convenient. But if you've used the program to create a password for you, you better write it down. You know, put it somewhere safe, because if you take that program out, then you're gonna have to go through the process of, you know, I forgot my password, and go through that whole thing to reset it. So I've been using this for years. I don't know how to live without it, quite frankly. It's almost like the internet itself or a cell phone. You might have been skeptical when you used it the first time, but now you can't remember what life was like without those things, right? This is one of those things. How did I get by before RoboForm? I don't know how I did it. Of course, I didn't have that many websites to go into either, but there weren't that many websites around back then. So, there was another question back here? That was your question?
We're psychic.
Excellent. Yes, sir.
Talk about solid state hard drives.
Solid state hard drives. I love solid state hard drives. There's one in this computer. You're going to hear the term solid state drive, SSD. What is it? A solid state hard drive Well, let me explain what a regular hard drive is first. A regular hard drive has a platter or platters that spin in a case. And it has a head that moves back and forth to read the data off of the platters. Almost like the way a needle reads a record or a laser reads a CD. The only difference is rather than going from outside to inside, it dances all around pulling the data. Wherever the data happens to exist on the platter, it's got to jump all around. That makes that rattling noise you often hear in your computer. And because it's mechanical, it heats up. And because it heats up, well, because there's friction, it heats up. And where there's heat, where there's friction, there is wear. And where there is wear, there is eventual failure. Every hard drive ever made will die. This is why we talk about backups all the time, which I haven't brought up, and don't get me started. We don't have enough time. If you have important data, you make copies of it in multiple places. We call them backups, they're just copies. A solid state drive is really like a flash drive. There's only chips in it. It's in a state of being solid. Nothing moves. Like a flash drive or a memory card in your camera or your cell phone or any memory card, you never defragment it. Never, never, never. You see, a solid state drive or a flash drive or a flash memory, USB flash memory, camera memory, it writes to something called cells. And those cells can only be written to a certain number of times, a few thousand times. Once the cell has been written to, after its last point, the cell dies. So there's this process called wear leveling, where the software built into the drive or the flash drive makes sure all the cells get used equally, so that they all should die pretty much right in line when that time comes. When does that time come? Should be about the same life as a hard drive, 5 to 7 years. I've never seen a solid state drive die yet, but I've only had them in use for 2 years now. And they are fast, because the data doesn't exist on a platter where a head has to move all over. Think about it this way. If you had a record with a song on it, and a piece of that song was on this part of the record, and then a piece of the song was on this part of the record, and a piece of the song was on the other side of the record, and your turntable could automatically move the needle to the next part, and then flip the record over, or maybe it has needles on both sides. Your 3-minute and 45-second song will suddenly become 4 minutes and 15 seconds, whereas it delays jumping from the next part. With a solid state drive, the data doesn't exist on a platter, it exists on a chip, and it's not any faster to get the data from the chip over here or the chip over there, no matter how it's split up. It's equally as fast. So what happens when you defragment it is you are needlessly adding a number of writes to those cells, thereby reducing the lifespan of that device, and it has absolutely no benefit of performance, none whatsoever. So never ever defragment a solid state drive. If you have Windows 7, Windows 8, it should even let you do that. Windows XP will let you do it. Don't recommend it. You won't kill it right away, but you won't gain anything from it. So where a modern hard drive can read data, and this may not mean anything to you, but I'll try and put it in a way you can understand. If a modern hard drive can read data at 150 megabytes a second or 180 megabytes a second, like a car can do 180 miles an hour. A solid state drive, a modern one, can read data at 540 megabytes a second. Or like a car that, you think the car that goes 540 can go faster than the car that does 180? Yeah. Yeah. The speeds are incredible. Your operating system, from the time you boot up the computer, it's boom, it's up. It's like 5 seconds for most people, or less. And it's completely dead silent. And in a laptop where it gets used to banging around, you know, if you've got a needle on a record, you don't want to bang it around. Well, with a traditional hard drive, that's what happens in laptops. With a solid state drive, bang it around all you want. Just like a flash drive. I used to take my flash drives and demos and throw them against the wall. Of course they work fine. The other thing that they do is they take less power, because you don't have to spin this platter and move this head. So your battery life in your laptop will be faster. Or not be faster, it'll extend the battery life. I've got them in my desktop computer. The difference is a solid state drive is fairly expensive if you compare it to the price of a hard drive. So right now, you can buy a 256 gigabyte solid state drive for about $180. For that same $180, you could buy a 2 terabyte hard drive and have change left over. So it's 8 times larger. But it's also 3 times slower. And it's noisy, and it consumes more power.
Are you saying you can buy these solid-state units and replace your present hard drive?
Yes, you can buy a solid-state drive and replace your hard drive if your computer is new enough. If you still have a computer with an IDE hard drive, it uses a big flat cable, you won't be able to. Your motherboard's got to support SATA. That's the only way they make them. And that's, if anybody's got a computer still that uses that flat IDE cable for their hard drive, it's probably time to buy a new computer anyway. The same goes with laptops. Some laptops still use, some older laptops will still use the older IDE style, or technically, because I know there's people that are going to watch this video and go, Carey, they're both IDE. One is called parallel ATA and the other is called serial ATA. So the parallel ATA is the big fat cable, and the serial ATA is this little skinny cable that we call SATA or serial ATA. You can go to Amazon.com or any place where computers and electronics are sold and you can buy one, and you can use a program like Acronis and clone your hard drive to the solid state drive as long as the amount of data on your hard drive does not exceed the capacity of the solid state drive. That's logical, right? You can't put 10 pounds of something into a 5-pound bag, right? I guess that was just funny for me. Anyway, that happens sometimes. Yes?
I changed mine over to a solid state and had to buy a new license because my computer was only licensed for the original hard drive.
Okay, so here's a common thing I hear. I changed a piece of hardware in my computer and I had to buy a new license for Windows because Windows was licensed to the hard drive. No, it is not. Windows is licensed to the motherboard. It is not licensed to the hard drive. If you call Microsoft, because if it doesn't activate automatically online, it'll say you can call for telephone, and you call them. And you say, I had to replace my hard drive. That's why I need an activation code. They say, well, how many computers do you have this copy of Windows installed on? 1. Okay, here's your activation code. And they will read it to you over the phone, and you will type it in, and you're good.
They wouldn't give me one.
You didn't say the right thing. That is the process. I've done it 100 times, more than 100 times. And I'm sorry you spent money you didn't have to spend. Windows is never, ever tied to the hard drive. Windows is tied to the motherboard. So that if you were to replace your motherboard, you would have to buy a new license of Windows. But there's a caveat. If the reason you replaced your motherboard was because it failed, well, guess what? Then they will give you a code and you do not have to buy a new copy of license of Windows. You've got to know what to say to them on the phone. But if you read the end user license agreement, and I know none of us do, but if you actually took the time to read it, it tells you, there's nothing in there that says it's tied to your hard drive. And I would challenge you to find it and email it to me if you find it, because it's not there. Yes?
It wasn't Windows that demanded that. They told me I had to call Acer, my computer brand. It was the Acer computer company that would not work with me.
Acer wouldn't work with you. Okay, 2 different things. So here's what happens. When a company like Dell or Acer or HP, when they include Windows, they buy what's called an OEM copy of Windows. And it's a little cheaper, it's a lot cheaper. Because Microsoft says, we will sell this to you, but don't come to us for any questions. You have your customers go to you for questions. And as a result of that, we'll reduce the cost. So if you're ever online and you see a copy of Windows that's an OEM and you notice it's significantly cheaper, that's the only difference. You cannot call Microsoft for support. So if she has an Acer and her activation window comes up because something has changed, well, first of all, I should mention this would never happen on a Dell or an HP because they never require activation. They use something called a system-locked pre-installation, where during the boot up, Windows checks the BIOS, and if the BIOS has a certain code in memory, it says, this is a Dell, and I don't have to activate ever. But here's what happens. On the Acers and all the other mass-produced computers, they all leave the factory with the same product key. That sticker on the side of your computer isn't the product key that was used. And if you try and activate that product key, it won't activate because like hundreds of people who also own Acers who tried to do what you did, Windows goes, there's way too many people using this product key, they block it, and they already know that's an Acer product key. And it doesn't take them long to figure out every computer from the factory uses that product key because they're mass produced. There's not somebody punching an individual product key on every single computer. It doesn't work that way. So what you would have to do is you would have to click the button, and I'm assuming you did not do this, and correct me if I'm wrong. When it doesn't pass activation, there should be a button that says, I want to change my product key. And if you click that, on this computer, there will be a sticker, a certificate of authenticity. It's about that big. And it will have a 5-digit code that's, well, it's 25 digits, like a series of 5-digit codes separated by dashes. You will enter that in. And that'll be the first time that code was ever used on your computer, and it'll activate. And I'm sorry, because you shouldn't have had to buy that license. You spent money you should not have had to spend. And that's unfortunate. And there's a lot of people in this business who had no business being in this business, as far as I'm concerned, including most of the people who answer the phones.
Do you use it on more than one computer?
When you buy a license for Windows, as I mentioned earlier, it's like a license for a car. If they send you two, one for the back, one for the front, you can't take the one for the front and go stick it on another car. They do sell multi-pack license versions of Windows. So there are some exceptions. But in general, one copy of Windows, one license, one computer. There are family packs that come with 3 licenses, but that's the exception. Or business volume licensing, which is another exception. But for people like us, where we buy a computer that comes with Windows, one license, one computer, and it's tied to the motherboard. Yes?
I used to work in a hospital, and when we upgraded from like XP to 2000, we ended up in a closet with 2,000 individual copies of Microsoft software, where we had one CD that was pure, pristine. It had the software that the hospital ran, and it had Microsoft on it, and we used that one CD to upgrade 1,000.
Yeah, that's a volume license.
But we had all of those copies of Microsoft sitting in the closet for 3 years.
That's not how they're supposed to do it. That's not how they're supposed to do it. They're supposed to get a piece of paper that costs about, well, I could show you online. We can go to like newegg.com. You could buy 30 copies of Windows 8 or Windows 7 for $3,700. And it's just a piece of paper. That's all it is with a code for $3,700. All the way in the back.
Yeah, can we go back to this hotspot issue again?
Sure.
If a person is on the road, you made the statement that you shouldn't use hotspot for any type of financial transactions. What's your suggestion? Then to go to like a library and hardwire, or what was that other card that you talked about?
The only safe way, the only way that you can absolutely be certain is to use an air card, which would be a cell phone that connects to the internet. So they do sell these little air cards. They have one called a MiFi card you might have heard of when you go to the cell store. They also have little USB. They look like little flash drives, but it's really nothing more than a cell phone, and all it does is connect you to the internet. You've heard the term 4G? That's what that's referring to, or 3G. It's referring to the speed of that cellular internet connection. And much like a cell phone number, that device is assigned a cellular number, cell phone number. You can't use it to call anybody, but it just connects you to the internet, and it's completely safe. Some people have smartphones with data plans, and they can tether them and use them connected to the laptop, even wirelessly through Bluetooth, to also get around that. Yes?
But can I just ask one more?
Of course, yes.
Would that be what the Verizon Jetpack is?
I've never heard of the Jetpack. The typical one that I hear about is the MiFi card. And the MiFi card would enable you, well, we did a trip in an RV, and there were 3 of us and a driver. And the 3 of us had our laptops open and our iPads, and we could all use that Wi-Fi connection in the RV as we were driving at the same time. So that is secure. But again, if you're just gonna go check websites, fine, doesn't matter. But if you wanna do anything personal or financial, the only other way around that is I have my computer turned on at home, and I can connect to my computer remotely and do everything through my computer at home through an encrypted connection. That's another safe way. Well, I don't know how practical that would be for you, but like right now, if I want to, I can sign into my computer at home, and then I can use my computer at home remotely to log into all my websites to pay all my bills, and that's completely safe. There's a question over here.
That MiFi card, so it's with a cell phone provider like Verizon, correct? Or
The MiFi card, or something like it, is available through cellular providers, most cellular providers.
As a Canadian, can I do that?
Yes, yes, if you're a Canadian, yes.
So there's no restriction on that cell phone provider that you have to be resident or?
That depends on the plan you pick, right? So if you buy a cell phone here, and your calling plan includes Canada or it doesn't, that's up to you to pick that. But, yes, yes.
What is your experience with Linux?
My experience with Linux? My experience with Linux is free if your time is worth nothing. It is something that is a wonderful, secure operating system that is very, very limited. And you have to kind of figure it all out. Now, there's a lot of help support on the web, a lot more now than there ever was. And Linux is better now than it's ever been, but it's still not ready for prime time. There's still a lot of software that won't work. You know, there's programs like Peachtree and, I don't know, even basics like AOL will not work in Linux. So the people that Linux would work best for, like AOL users in general, not to put them, say anything bad about them, but that category of basic user would do well with Linux because it would prevent them from getting viruses and getting themselves in trouble. But you can't put AOL on it. So you have to find an alternative to everything in Linux, and it takes time. But once you take that time, you probably fall in love with it.
Even the Mint version?
Even the Mint version? You know, there are a lot of different flavors of Linux from, you know, there's Linux Mint that you mentioned, Ubuntu, Debian, there's a bunch of different I call it flavors. They have a distribution is what they call it. They all basically use this, they're all using the same Linux kernel, the same core. One version to another is a, do you like Ford, do you like Chevy, do you like Nissan, do you like Toyota, do you like Infiniti, do you like Lexus, do you like Mercedes, do you know, Audi. That's a personal thing. I don't use Linux. Not intentionally. I have some devices that run a version of Linux, but it's transparent to me. Like I have a media streamer where I can stream YouTube and Netflix to my television, and that's all based on a Linux backend. But I don't see that. You know, I only see the interface. So Linux is in our lives. We just don't realize it for many of us. But for a computer, I don't recommend it to a group like this. Generally, it is used by the nerdiest of the nerds. And I don't mean that in any other way than people that are really technical, scientific type, who want to be different, who maybe they don't like Microsoft, or they have a thing against Microsoft, whatever their motivation is. And then there are the gurus who actually, you know, a lot of the internet is run on Linux. A lot of the websites. And those are really brilliant people who make all that work. It's not easy if you don't know the first thing about it. Like, well, I suppose that applies to a lot of things, but it's a great, powerful operating system that I would never recommend unless you had a business need for it, or you just had a lot of time on your hands and you wanted to play with it. Does that make sense? You don't look happy with my answer.
Well, it makes sense, but at the same time, Linux wasn't popular because it was a learning curve. But now Windows 8 is out and it's a big learning curve, and I'm reading the PC World where people have tried it, and they're no doubt tech people, but they don't like it and they're switching to Linux.
Yeah, so for people who didn't hear you, because a lot of people do not like the Windows 8 interface and are going to have to relearn Windows 8, why not take this opportunity to learn Linux instead? It's free. If I got to learn something, why not learn Linux? That's a valid point, except you want Family Tree Maker? Not on Linux. Do you want, you know, maybe the printer you bought won't have a Linux driver. You have to specifically go and look for Linux compatible hardware and software. That's, to me, where I lose interest. I go, it's too much trouble. Windows, you just turn it on, you start using it. And I think the learning curve to learning Windows 8 isn't as steep as the learning curve to Linux. But I also think this is an individual decision. It's not one I can make for you. Yes?
I'm just wondering what you said there a minute ago. You know the TV service called TiVo?
TiVo? Yep.
Is that Linux? or-
Yes. That's a flavor of Linux. Yes.
You know, Carey, why is Linux more impervious to viruses and so on?
Yeah, people will say Linux is more secure, and it is. It is. It's not impervious. And you can still be spoofed into going to a fake site, no matter what you're using. And if you go to a fake site, and you put your information in, it's called phishing or site spoofing. There's also man-in-the-middle attacks where you could have Linux on a laptop and on a Wi-Fi point. You think you're connected to a Wi-Fi that you're not really connected to. And again, they're logging everything you're typing and all the information you're sending. And it wouldn't matter if it was Linux or a Mac in those situations. But yes, the statistical likelihood is much more reduced of getting infected with Linux than it would be with Mac or Windows. Mac is also its own sort of Linux base.
Thank you.
Yes?
If something is encrypted, does that make it absolutely 100% safe?
If something is encrypted, does it make it 100% safe? Nothing is 100% safe. The Pentagon gets hacked. You know, if they can get hacked, what chance do we have? If you lock your doors and put an alarm on your car, is it guaranteed nobody's going to break into it? If you put the club on the wheel and you take the tires off of it, someone can still take it. But it reduces the odds of it happening. It is a significant deterrent. Some of these encryption methods could take 23 years or longer to decrypt, unless you put a really silly password like 1234. Then the encryption really could be easily hacked. Encryption is the equivalent of, what was it, World War II, where they had the Navajo speakers, so that you could hear, the enemy could hear, but they couldn't make out what was being said. That's the equivalent of encryption. If somebody is eavesdropping, all the information is in another language they don't understand. To make an analogy that's not the best, but sort of gets the idea across. That's what...
Is there anti-encryption software?
Of course there's anti-encryption software, yes. 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 And there's lockpick kits that you can buy too, if you want to go old school and unlock a door or pick a lock. But with a good, strong encryption password, it would take many years for them to do what's called a brute force attack. And a brute force attack is where the computer is told to automatically try every letter, every character in the alphabet, every number and every symbol. A, B, 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 you know. Now try 3, now try 4, now try 5, and all the different combinations until it cracks it. Yes?
The hotspot clarification question?
Yes.
You have a Verizon service on a smartphone that turns the smartphone into a hotspot?
Yes.
Is that safe?
Yeah, that's yours. That's going through your cell phone, your personal cell phone. That belongs to you. It's not a stranger's that you don't know. You know what they say about strangers? I mean, they certainly told me when I was a kid. A Wi-Fi point, if you don't, even if it's a reputable company, there's just no way to know who else is using that without the company's permission necessarily for bad things. Yes?
With my computers getting near end of life term in the next couple of years, with understanding now that Microsoft has got this end of life time period, and I can look at that. Does Apple have the same, or should I start looking at different? Like, who would have the longest life if I were?
Definitely not Apple. You see, with Apple, you get what they tell you you're going to have. When they tell you you're going to have it. And you're going to like it. And some people like that. I don't want to have to make decisions. Let Apple make those decisions for me. I'll pay them extra. I'm not that guy. I like my freedom. And with that freedom comes a little bit of danger. I want to walk down that dark alley at midnight if I want to. Apple won't let me do that. So some people like Apple for that reason. Every product ever made has an end of life. Every car, every TV, every carpet, everything that you've ever bought in your life has a projected lifespan for replacement. Except maybe diamonds. My driver's license has an expiration date, but I think it's just the license, not me. I hope. So far.
You have one, you just don't know.
We all have one. We don't know when or how, but nothing lasts forever. That's something I've said over and over and over again. Except those plastic bags they give you at the shopping mart. Those things have been around for years. Yes?
I upgraded from Vista to 8, and I was told that I would have all my programs that wouldn't eliminate them. Well, it turned out that I can't find Office at all, and I don't understand it.
So you upgraded from Windows Vista to Windows 8. You were told that you would still have all your programs. If you put that little classic shell that I showed you, put your start button back, you'll probably find it. And it won't cost you anything, completely free. So if you didn't make a note of that, classicshell.sourceforge.net. Yes?
We've been doing income tax using Profile for years, and it worked fine on our XP. And then last year, when we tried to run it, we had to upgrade to Windows 7. Now, is that the software being just built for that particular?
They got to pay developers. You got to pay your employees. If you want to pay your employees to write it for Windows XP and Windows Vista and Windows 7, then you got to pay your support staff. So someone calls it XP. So you make a business call and you say, if anybody's got XP, we don't want to support it. They need to have Windows 7 by now. That's why I said it's already, the phase out has already begun. XP's been around longer than any other Microsoft operating system ever. You think about Windows DOS 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, those all came out within a couple of years. Windows 95, 98, 98 second edition, and ME, all within 2 to 3 years of each other, including XP after Millennium. And then there's this big, long delay after XP before Vista comes out. And Vista was kind of a push out the door, and that's where we get into the politics of a corporation who has to answer to shareholders who say, why isn't there more revenue coming in? Why isn't there a new operating system? It's not a question that there needed to be. It's answering to the shareholders. However, the truth is that technology's changed a lot since XP came out. There was no Wi-Fi when XP came out. There was no USB 3.0 or SATA hard drives or the modern CPUs with 8 cores. So XP wasn't really engineered to use those things, and you got to put drivers on and patch it and kind of make it work. Windows 7, Windows 8, those things were designed right from the get-go with these technologies in mind. But as new technologies come out, then it'll be time for another operating system to be able to utilize those efficiently as well.
We're better to wait till Windows 9 or 10.
Not necessarily, not necessarily. If you have Windows Vista, you probably should go ahead and upgrade it. You'll probably find your computer's faster with Windows 8 than it was with Vista or even 7. I've noticed it's faster with 8. And like I said, when you put that classic shell on 8, it's not so bad. It really isn't. And I'm going to make a prediction that in a service pack in the future, Microsoft is going to put that start button back. That's my prediction. That's my... Remember I said it's on tape if I didn't run out of battery yet. There was another question over here? Yes.
Yes, if you've got Windows 7 now, to upgrade to an 8 on the same computer or go out and buy Windows 8? Because I did Vista. I did to Windows 7, it was a disaster.
No, in general, I don't recommend ever upgrading your operating system unless you have Vista. If you have Vista, I would upgrade it to 7 or 8. But if you've already got 7, you're fine. Again, what's 8 going to do for you that 7 doesn't already do? So why bother? So when you buy a new computer, it'll come with Windows 8, you'll get it. Yes?
Mary, I found it was very helpful. I have an XP, an old XP, and it was getting so slow, and I had most of my material off of it. I just reinstalled it with my disks, and it was A1 again, worked perfect, except I had to update a few things.
Yeah, there's something called Windows rot that occurs, that over time, programs will create a lot of temp files, and registry gets built up with unnecessary files, and it'll start bogging down and slowing down. And then you can do a wipe and a reinstall, or what we call a nuke and a pave, reset it back to the way it came out of the box, and it's running fast again.
Yeah, it worked fine.
Yeah. There's also, I do that in my business where I don't go to that extreme. I hate to do a reinstall. It's a lot of work because you've got to install all your Windows updates, and for Windows XP, there's a ton of them. You'll spend 5 hours doing updates. And then you got to put Java back on and Flash and Adobe Reader. You got to set your email back up. You got to put your programs back on. You got to put your updates to your programs back on. You got to get your drivers for your video card, your sound card, your network card. It's a lot of work. So I prefer to just clean the computer. Yes?
Java, is there a big problem with that right now?
Java had an exploit in version 10, version 7 update 10 which is why if you go to download Java today, it's version 7, update 11. It's been addressed. Everybody should update Java. Just go to java.com. There's a button that says verify Java version. If I go there right now, if you have a Windows computer, if I go to java.com, there's this button right here. It says, do I have Java? You see that down below the button? Below the big button, there's a smaller button. It says, do I have Java? You click on that, and there's a big red button that says verify Java version. And then up here, what is this? Java was blocked because it's out of date. We have to update it. So I mean, that didn't even let me test it. So this one needs to be updated. So we just click the free Java download, agree and download. Now when you download Java, and I want to warn you this, of any free software that you download, not all free software, but a lot of it, we'll try and put other things on like toolbars. So don't just click next. Again, I'm going to advise you to slow down and read what it says. So if we go here and start the download, which will start here in just a moment, what's going to happen is Java's going to probably try and install the Ask toolbar. It might try and install Carbonite. It's kind of a random thing, and they make deals with companies, and they get paid a certain amount of pennies every time it gets installed on somebody's computer, and that helps make the Java available for free. Yeah, it's still not ready. So when you're clicking next, and you see that end user license agreement, you have to agree to that. But watch for the other little check boxes. Make Ask my home page. Make Ask my search provider. No. Agree to the Ask user license agreement. No, I'm not going to agree to the Ask user license agreement. I'm going to agree to the Java license agreement. So watch. We're going to run the installer. We'll click install. And here it's going to download the installer. This just takes a moment. Well, maybe not. Not the fastest Wi-Fi here, apparently. Oh, did I open a can of worms? You know, of all the resorts I go to, this is never a problem. You guys aren't alone. That's sarcasm. It's always a problem. There's a resort I go to all the time on my side of town, and I'll just start and go, just don't ask me questions about your Wi-Fi. And they'll chuckle, and it's just like, I can't answer. That's between you and management to figure that out. So, well, we can take some more questions while that works, and I'll show you.
I'd like to point out at this time that all our Wi-Fi places are hotspots. And despite the fact that you need a password to get into them, they're still open to anybody who wants to listen.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, even the hotspots here, I wouldn't use it for financial reasons. You could have a neighbor like me sniffing on your, so we call it sniffing, eavesdropping your connection. Even if it's a password required to log in, that's not necessarily a guarantee. How much time do I have? How are we on time? 10 minutes? How about a speed round? Let's get some fast questions.
Mine is regard to cell phones. My contract has expired. I'm still with my provider. I called them, someone else wanted to buy my phone because I plan on getting a new one. They will not, even though it's my phone, they won't unlock it. Is that legal? It's my phone.
What do you mean unlock it?
Okay, I am with Verizon, you're with whatever.
T-Mobile, whatever. I'm with Verizon, but...
Oh, okay, but you're with another provider. My phone, I want to...
is locked into that provider. Your phone's locked into Verizon. And you want to sell it your cell phone to somebody who wants to use it for T-Mobile or another provider. What's in it for Verizon to do that? Why would they do that for you? Why would they take their employees and their time to do something for you that's making them no money? The provider who you're going to should do that for you to earn your business. They'll unlock it for you.
Oh.
Yeah, it's to the person who wants your business, not to the person who you're leaving. As far as they're concerned, don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out. But the person that you're going to, hey, come on in, we can unlock that phone, come on in, no problem.
What
Sure.
about when you buy an unlocked phone?
You can certainly buy an unlocked phone. You pay a little bit more money for it. Yeah.
So how does that work from country to country? You just change
You know,
out the SIM cards?
I've never been out of this country, so I don't know the answer to that. I know in Europe they use something called GSM, and I have a few clients that do business traveling and spend a lot of time in Europe and Barbados and places like that. And anytime he asks me questions about his internet connection or his phone, I'm like, fly me out there and I'll look at it for you. I've never been there, so I don't know. But I think a lot of these kind of questions could probably be answered on the internet, I think.
Well, I'm still doing research because you can't always believe what they tell you at the store.
That's true. That's true.
So to me, it's the answer for US, Canada, to just, buy the unlocked card, and Apple sells one online, and other companies sell them online.
Sure.
Other electronics sell them.
Right. You can buy an unlocked phone
And you just change
and
out
change your
SIM card.
providers. You change out your SIM card, exactly. Exactly.
That works, I do that.
Do you?
I do that, it works.
I need to talk to you.
Well, there you go. Yes, sir.
How safe is cell phone for credit card numbers?
You know what the problem with cell phones with credit card numbers are? People's oblivious to the other people around them. Hello? My credit card number is 4011-825. That's where the security problem falls with using a cell phone for credit card numbers.
As far as somebody hacking into it?
Nobody's going to hack into your phone. It's unlikely. People that have Bluetooth, people were hacking in, but they had to be within 25 feet of you to do it.
Those older phones under 450 megahertz, whatever.
Yeah, before they were digital, when they were analog.
Oh.
Back in the day when it would go shh, I can't hear what, shh. Now it's just hello, click, hello. Signal is there or not with digital. It's on or it's off. With analog, yeah, there could be eavesdroppers like wireless phones in your house. But even wireless phones in the house now, for anybody who still has a landline, those are encrypted now too. But the problem generally falls in two categories. One is oblivious of the people around you and speaking loudly. And two is you don't know who the other person is, who you're giving your credit card number to, which is always a problem. Even at a restaurant, the waiter could take your card and copy it. But you do have protections through your credit card company for that. So unless you're using a debit card with a PIN, I wouldn't use a debit card. But using a credit card, you have protections where you're only limited to $50 worth of theft. And usually they don't even make you pay that. They just take care of it. Oh, here we go. There it is. Install the Ask toolbar. So most of us would just keep clicking next and then wonder how we got the Ask toolbar or how our home page suddenly changed. So just uncheck. It's all you have to do is uncheck and then click next. That's all you had to do. So when you install any of the free software I talked about today, watch for that, because some of it will pop up, and watch for the check boxes. If it's the end user license agreement for the product, agree to it. If it's the end user license agreement for something else, don't. Yes, sir.
Okay, I made the mistake of not hitting that checkbox.
Yeah.
I have that little window that pops up and says the Internet Explorer add-on installer. And then it says continue or cancel. It doesn't matter which one of those two I push, it comes up all the time.
If it comes up all the time, here's what you do. The software's already been installed. Would you like to reinstall it? What you do is you go to your control panel. What is this, XP, 7, 8? Vista. It's always the one I don't say. Go to your control panel, right? And go to Internet Options, which is in here somewhere. There it is. And then under Internet Options, you go to Advanced right up here. And you see this button? Right. I've got Java installing, so it's overwriting here. You won't see this. Let's minimize that. You see this button here? It says Reset. That's going to reset your Internet Explorer back to the way it came out of the box. All right. That's on every version of Windows XP 7. You can even get to it by going to Internet Explorer, clicking on Tools in Internet Options in Internet Explorer. It'll take you to the exact same place. So there's a couple of different ways you can get to it. That's a wonderful button. I'm so happy Microsoft added that. Time?
What are you getting rid of when you?
You're getting rid of all the add-ons, all of the plugins. It resets it back to brand spanking new like it initially installed. Do we have time for one last question? Anybody? How are we on time? I got lots of questions. Well, you know what? They're just going to have to stop me. Let's go all the way in the back. I haven't heard from you.
I have a Windows 7 computer I bought last year, and my old one's a Vista. And for some reason now, I can't download anything on the 7. Like a game if I want to buy or download some product, you know.
If you want to download a product, it's not letting you download?
It's not letting me download anything.
And you're using Explorer?
I use Firefox generally. But Explorer does pop up for some things. But a screen comes up, it looks like it's going to download, and then all of a sudden it says,
You know what I would do if I were you?
unable to download.
I would get that Malwarebytes program,
Okay.
and I would download it, install it, get the free version. It'll run in the full version as a trial for 14 days. Scan your computer, anything it finds, remove. Then I would click on About Firefox and see if there's an update. Knowing Firefox, it's been 24 hours, there's probably an update. They update that thing like nobody's business. We're up to like version 18 now. It's crazy. 1801, there's another update. And then maybe try Google Chrome too. I like Chrome better than Firefox personally, but that's a preference. There were a bunch of hands up. Let's see if we can get yes.
I do Control-Alt-Delete, Task Manager, hit Task Manager, and I ain't got no Task Manager.
Right. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, I want Task Manager.
If you go to Control-Alt-Delete, that brings up the Task Manager. If you shut the Task Manager down, it goes away.
The Task Manager never comes up.
When you hit Control-Alt-Delete on Windows 7, and then you get the little buttons that appear, and it says, what do you want to do? Do you want to log off? Do you want to go to Task Manager? That's where you're clicking Task Manager, and nothing's happening. I would, again, the same advice, malware. Most of you in this room have malware and don't even know it. I advise all of you, regardless of what antivirus you're running, Malwarebytes should work and get along with it, coexist with it just fine.
Run it every other day.
You've run Malwarebytes?
And I paid for it.
That's a problem that I can't answer on stage. I'd have to see it. But you could, I've got a video showing where you can go for free technical support online too that you might check out. There's a couple of sources. One's called techguy.org. Not guide, but guy, G-U-Y. And at TechGuy, they're just volunteers, techguy.org. And it's all volunteers, and they're there to answer technical questions to the best of their abilities. It's all free. You might have to wait a day for a response, but...
What was your website again?
I usually refer people to my YouTube page. So my YouTube page is youtube.com/Carey Holzman. Carey is C-A-R-E-Y, and Holzman is H-O-L-Z. There's not a T in there. H-O-L-Z, like zebra, M-A-N. And that'll take you to my YouTube page where I've got my videos, and you just hit the Browse Videos button, and you'll see a selection of my videos that you can choose to watch, whatever ones interest you. Yes?
In my Skype, I get at least once a week, and then if I get it, sometimes in an hour, urgent notification report, and I cannot get rid of this. How do I get into my Skype?
So every once a week, your Skype comes up with an urgent notification report.
Really urgent, really urgent. So
Have you updated Skype?
I blocked it, and it comes up again and again.
Have you updated it? I mean, Skype's been updated a couple times. Without knowing exactly what that report says, I'm not sure what to tell you.
They want you to do it again, they want you to pay and get rid of the problems that there are. But how do they get to me to notify them?
Oh, you should be able to go into Skype and say, only allow people in my contacts list to contact me on Skype. You've got to go in Skype options and say, only allow, I understand your question now. She's not infected. She's got, people are familiar with Skype? Anybody not familiar with Skype? So Skype just enables you to call somebody and talk to them and even do a video conference with anybody else in the world who also has Skype for free, or you can pay some money and call any phone number. Well, you know, the money depends on the country per minute, but it's cheaper than a regular phone. You need to use a microphone and a headset or whatever, and you can call somebody's cell phone or home phone, but that costs money. But Skype to Skype anywhere in the world is free. So what she's got is she's got her Skype running, because nobody can call you if your Skype's not running. And people are contacting her, soliciting her. So there's an option in Skype that says, only allow people in my contacts list to talk to me. Check that box, you're good to go. Are we done?
Yes, gentleman has to be in here in 15 minutes.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming to see me today. I've got some business cards there if you want on the table. I hope I'll see you again.